The Chancellor has been accused by the Conservatives of lying to the public over the financial black hole.
Rachel Reeves, she's been accused of misleading the British public by allegedly cooking up a £20 billion black hole that simply didn't exist.
It was absolutely wild. Just moments ago, Rachel Reeves got caught up in what's being called one of the biggest financial scandals in British history. The Chancellor's now accused of pulling off a shocking £22 billion deception right there in front of the entire country on live TV. She's scrabbling to say her numbers were misinterpreted, but it's way too late for that. The leaked documents are out, and there's no hiding now. Protesters have flooded the streets outside Parliament, demanding she step down immediately. Even whispers of a Supreme Court intervention are already spreading like wildfire. Saturday's broadcast turned into a total disaster for Reeves. In front of millions, she was accused of faking a £22 billion black hole in the national budget, and she looked completely blindsided. The presenter locked eyes with her and asked straight up, "Using this financial scam, you sanctioned a £30 billion raid on taxpayers." Question hit like a bomb. From there, it all went downhill fast. The Chancellor stumbled through a panicked defense, trying to pin everything on so-called productivity downgrades. But she couldn't explain the glaring £4.2 billion surplus that was sitting right there, clear as day. The interviewer didn't let up for a second, holding up the official OBR report that proved Reeves knew about the positive cash flow weeks before she allegedly decided to take from the public. What a jaw-dropping moment.
When you spoke to the country on November the 4th, you warned that we'd all have to contribute to filling this financial black hole. But you already knew at that moment that the OBR had assessed that your plans at that point, let's be clear, the plans that you'd given them at that point would deliver a surplus of £4 billion. Why did you lie to the country?
I'm a Labour Chancellor. I want to reduce child poverty. I make no apologies for that.
I just asked you, did you lie?
Of course I didn't.
Her comeback was brutal. She snapped, "This is the legacy of the last 14 years. The Conservatives are to blame." But critics aren't buying it. They're shouting that this wasn't some harmless accounting mistake. It was a cold, calculated heist, a scheme to funnel billions from hard-working businesses straight into social benefit programs for new arrivals. Furious pensioners are realizing their winter fuel payments vanished because of what they're calling a total fabrication meant to punish them. And all while Parliament pretended to know nothing. Even Keir Starmer, who once stood firmly beside Rachel Reeves, is suddenly nowhere to be found. A year ago, he passionately defended her. Now he's dead silent, claiming there isn't enough information to comment. But whispers in Westminster say he could be dragged down with her over this alleged $22 billion lie. Some insiders even believe he might have to resign alongside her if things keep spiraling. As Reeves hurried out of Parliament, chaos surrounded her. American journalists swarmed in, shouting questions, but she ducked away, pretending to take an urgent phone call before disappearing into her security car. The scene was pure panic. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage is going full throttle. He's demanding a Supreme Court investigation, calling it completely unavoidable. And he's not letting anyone forget that the Prime Minister's own right hand, Angela Rayner, was caught just months ago in that £800,000 seaside property scandal that forced her out instantly. Farage says Rachel Reeves now faces two brutal choices. Either she steps down on her own, or the Supreme Court will make that decision for her. "This is the darkest year in Labour's history," he declared. Angela Rayner's gone, Keir Starmer's approval ratings are crashing, and critics warn, if Reeves gets charged, the entire party could collapse before our eyes. If a chancellor lies about the nation being broke when we actually have a surplus, does that count as treason or just criminal incompetence? The questions got everyone fired up. This politician seems to have masterminded a massive wealth grab, shifting billions from private businesses into government handouts. People are now asking how many more billions are still hidden in the shadows. Expert commentators aren't letting this go for a second. The explosive interview has taken over the internet. Millions have watched the exact moment her story completely fell apart live on air. She tried to cover herself by blaming a so-called productivity downgrade, but the host tore that defense to pieces. They slammed her with hard data on wage growth that she'd conveniently ignored. Now analysts are confirming what many feared. The brutal tax hikes on small businesses were all part of a plan to secretly pump up the welfare state. And what about ER? His silence is echoing louder than any statement. People are starting to think he might have been the real mastermind behind this entire scheme from day one. Even constitutional lawyers are weighing in, asking if knowingly misleading Parliament about the country's finances could actually be a criminal act. During that broadcast, her arrogance was crystal clear. She brushed off serious questions about the $4.2 billion surplus, acting like the public didn't even deserve answers. Behind closed doors, Labour backbench MPs are already panicking, telling journalists the game is up and that they're terrified of facing their voters this weekend. And it's not just talk anymore. Over 132,000 people have signed petitions demanding her immediate removal in just 7 hours. If this lie stands, no future budget will ever be trusted again. The UK could spiral into a permanent state of financial distrust and political chaos. After that brutal TV meltdown, Kemi Badenoch came out swinging in Parliament, and her attack was nothing short of explosive. The House of Commons went silent as she unleashed a ferocious takedown that left government benches in total shock. Standing face to face with the Chancellor, Badenoch didn't hold back for a second. She roared across the chamber, accusing Rachel Reeves of masterminding a campaign of lies to rob the British people, and shouted, "You have completely lied to the public." The air crackled with tension. For months, Badenoch has been on Reeves's case, but this time she went for the jugular. She tore apart the so-called budget, exposing it as a cynical move, a straight-up wealth grab disguised as policy. She called it a budget for benefits that punishes hard work. Each word hit like a punch, while Keir Starmer sat frozen, looking visibly sick as his government's credibility crumbled piece by piece. Every flimsy excuse Reeves tried to make about the so-called black hole was instantly crushed with hard data, showing the hidden surplus she'd ignored. Witnesses say Reeves literally shrank into her seat as Badenoch mocked her disastrous TV interview.
Then came the line that silenced the whole chamber. "This is not incompetence. This is a choice to saddle our children with debt." The room erupted in gasps. Desperate to regain control, Reeves switched tactics. Tears in her eyes, she claimed she was being unfairly burdened because she's a woman, saying others should imagine themselves in her place. But sympathy wasn't coming her way. Within hours, that emotional moment went viral. 8.2 million views on TikTok in just 4 hours. Still, Badenoch wasn't moved one bit. She fired back coldly, saying, "This is the most pathetic answer one could possibly hear." Her voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Then she finished with a line that echoed across the room. Reeves, she said, knew perfectly well what it meant to hold the third most powerful office in Britain. What a clash of power and pride. Critics are calling it the most savage political takedown of a chancellor in modern British history. Kemi Badenoch went straight for the jugular, demanding to know why working mothers should be forced to bankroll larger families living off benefits, a question Rachel Reeves flat out refused to answer. Kemi's razor-sharp breakdown exposed Labour's entire economic plan as nothing more than smoke, mirrors, and deceit. The scene inside Parliament was electric. Government backbenchers couldn't even look up. They just stared down at their shoes, completely unable to defend their leader under the weight of Kemi's relentless attack. She pointed out that unemployment has risen every single month since Reeves took office, proving her policies aren't just failing, they're downright toxic. The once proud nickname Iron Chancellor became a national joke, with Kemi mocking her as nothing more than a puppet for the unions, according to insiders. Meanwhile, government spin doctors are scrambling behind the scenes, desperately trying to wipe the leaked budget report from the internet. But it's too late. Screenshots are everywhere, spreading across every social media platform like wildfire. This has blown way past an economic debate. It's now a full-blown moral crisis. Critics say the government is robbing the productive just to buy loyalty from those dependent on state handouts, especially recent arrivals. Political analysts are calling it a ruthless power game, claiming Labour's real plan is to drain wealth from the working minority and use it to bribe the dependent majority with endless welfare perks.
When a TV anchor pressed Reeves on this explosive accusation, she completely froze, then pulled a stunt that only made things worse. Pretending her earpiece had suddenly stopped working, she tried to dodge the question entirely. The clip's now viral, and people can't stop talking about the moment Britain's chancellor ran out of answers on live TV. Social media is absolutely exploding right now. Millions of furious Britons are flooding Rachel Reeves' pages, accusing both her and Keir Starmer of the most shameless hypocrisy the country's seen in decades. The Chancellor's latest interview has become a national embarrassment. She couldn't even keep up with basic math on live TV. After years of lecturing business owners about paying their fair share, it's now Reeves who's being called out for financial cluelessness. Even top television hosts are saying it straight. The public is boiling with rage. People feel they were gaslit by their own government, and they're done staying quiet. Her defense completely collapsed live on air. One minute she said the economy was broken, the next she admitted to ignoring the positive OBR data. Every time a tough question came her way, her story changed again. Viewers were stunned as she twisted herself in circles trying to dodge accountability. Observers are ripping into her hypocrisy, reminding everyone how Reeves used to demand resignations over tiny clerical errors, yet now she's clinging to her position like nothing happened. After allegedly fabricating a $30 billion crisis, her promise of economic stability means nothing. How can anyone trust her numbers when the so-called deficit she panicked over was one she practically made up from thin air? Crowds are now pouring into central London, chanting for answers, demanding to know if the Prime Minister himself was part of this financial cover-up alongside his right-hand woman. Sources say Keir Starmer might look calm on camera, but inside number 10, it's full-blown chaos. Insiders are whispering about a desperate damage control operation, with staff scrambling to hide the paper trail before more leaks hit the press. Across the country, frustration has turned into unity. People from every corner of Britain are disgusted. Pensioners say they froze through winter, choosing between heat and food, all while the self-proclaimed champion of the working class sat comfortably on a budget surplus she refused to admit existed. What a national outrage! This level of deception has shaken the entire nation. Public opinion has flipped like never before, and Keir Starmer is reportedly terrified that the rising fury across Britain could trigger an early election he's doomed to lose. Economic experts say the country is buckling under the heaviest tax load in modern history. Farmers are in open revolt, businesses are shutting down, and foreign investors are pulling out of the UK in droves. The pressure is reaching breaking point. The Prime Minister now looks powerless, his authority shattered after his Chancellor's scandal exposed the rot running through the core of his leadership. Families everywhere are gripped with fear about how they'll survive financially, while opposition leaders warn that this mystery of the missing billions could be the spark that blows the entire system wide open. Reeves keeps parading her tough choices in public, desperately begging for sympathy, but critics aren't buying a word of it. They're calling it a pathetic act, saying voters see right through her tearful performance. False tears can't wash away betrayal, one political commentator blasted on air. The public once saw her as the steady hand guiding Britain through the storm, but now they curse the day they ever trusted her name on a balance sheet. It's dawning on everyone that she's been draining the very funds she promised to protect. The so-called $22 billion deficit she invented isn't just a scandal. It's the loudest alarm bell yet in a raging inferno that's burning through the entire government. Prominent TV anchors are saying it plain. This wasn't a mistake in the math. It was a total breach of trust, a political blood oath shattered beyond repair. The people won't forgive this one.
When the head of the Treasury fabricates fake financial losses just to squeeze the people, the government instantly loses all moral right to demand taxes. That chilling reality is now driving Keir Starmer to the edge. Sources say he's on the verge of a complete mental collapse. Critics aren't letting up for a second. They're saying the government foolishly hoped the news cycle would bury this scandal, but instead, it's like they threw jet fuel straight onto a raging political fire. Voters have connected the dots, her deception, their empty wallets. Now journalists are hammering the cabinet with brutal questions day and night.
Even the Prime Minister knows the truth. The nation sees his integrity as bankrupt as Reeves' fraudulent spreadsheets. Petitions calling for immediate impeachment are skyrocketing, turning into a tidal wave of fury threatening to wipe out this entire government. And just when things couldn't get more intense, the royals are suddenly in the picture. Urgent reports claim King Charles was spotted arriving at Balmoral under the cover of darkness. Witnesses described a convoy of blacked-out vehicles quietly rolling through the gates late at night, with lights flickering in the upper windows as figures paced back and forth, what many are calling an emergency royal summit. By dawn, every shutter was slammed shut tight, deepening the mystery. Then came the viral video that blew up the internet. Millions have watched a furious protester standing outside Downing Street shouting, "Your Majesty, dissolve this corrupt parliament." The clip's been shared non-stop, capturing the raw anger pulsing through the streets. But the silence from Buckingham Palace has been absolutely chilling. For 9 long hours, not a single word has come from the royal household. According to senior royal correspondents, that silence speaks volumes. They warn that when the Crown says nothing during a constitutional breakdown, it means the situation is far more dangerous than the public realizes. Labour promised a new dawn of honesty and integrity, but instead it delivered what critics are calling a political bank heist disguised in official paperwork. That shocking $30 billion raid has become the symbol of betrayal shaking Britain to its core. What's happening right now stands as a permanent tombstone to political betrayal. Every major paper in Britain is now linking Keir Starmer's team to what's being described as a coordinated economic fraud. The polished image of competence has completely shattered, revealing a terrified inner circle desperately clinging to power through deception and panic. Keir finally sees what the public already knows. The so-called tough choices narrative collapses the moment people realize the entire emergency was fake from the start. The outrage is deafening. Citizens across the country are screaming for justice, and legal teams are reportedly gearing up to take this straight to the Supreme Court. But if the Prime Minister thought hiding away would calm things down, he's dreaming. The backlash has only just begun. Rachel Reeves refuses to step down in disgrace. Instead, she's gone on the offensive. She's blaming the media, claiming independent data is flawed, and insisting that she alone has the real facts. Now she's turning the machinery of the state against anyone who challenges her numbers. Reports say civil servants are being pressured to silence any dissent inside the Treasury. Journalists are frantically trying to leak the unredacted budget files to stabilize the markets, but Reeves is treating this like all-out war for her political survival. She's built a wall of secrecy, surrounding herself with the cabinet's most radical loyalists, morphing overnight into what critics are calling a dictator of finance. This is pure political gaslighting at its peak. The same politician accused of tricking the nation into financial ruin is now screaming that journalists are crashing the economy just for asking basic questions. Leaks claim Keir Starmer is physically shaking with fear. He's chained to a chancellor he can't defend, but also can't fire without exposing the entire scandal. And that's where things stand, for now. This storm isn't over, not by a long shot. If you're following this unbelievable story, make sure to subscribe, like, and drop a comment about what you think is coming next. Stay tuned. See you in the next video.